Well, let's get down to the starting line. I'll tell you about what you're going to see on tonight's show. A 1976 Honda CR250 in the What's It Worth segment. Part 2 of the Neil Fergus story from Jeff Kokoski, and a beautiful Suzuki RM400 in the Moto Showcase. We owe all that. And coming up, more on Vintage Motocross Q&A.
Hi, I'm Al Roof, the other lumberjack, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Abbate, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Thank you for joining me tonight. If you're watching on Facebook or you're on YouTube, be sure to share the show, give us a follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I want to thank everybody whose name is up here on the board. Some of our supporters, including McCaffrey Welding, Carl Word, Mike Husted, Tim Whitehouse, and I just got some money today from Tom Miller. Thank you, Tom Miller, for re-upping your subscription, so to speak, here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. A little bit of a closer look at some of the people who have helped us out over the past 6 months or so. Actually, some of them have been up there for years. So thank you all so very much for helping us here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Yes, Susie is with me. Susie, what do you got going on tonight? Everything okay?
Everything's great.
Yeah? You got anything you're giving away?
I'm giving away, for What's It Worth, AMSOIL synthetic two-stroke oil, courtesy of Russell Waters. And for view appreciation, they're going to get some Marty Smith stickers, courtesy of Richard Sala.
Yeah.
And there's a poster for trivia, but I can't say anything about the poster.
Exactly. We can't say anything about the poster until trivia actually comes up tonight, because the poster is kind of part of the trivia answer. And it is the trivia answer, actually. And you'll see more of that later on in the show. We also have, the viewer appreciation. We talked about that, right? Okay. So let's get on with the show, and we'll jump right into the Moto Showcase. The Moto Showcase is brought to you by Preston Petty Products. Be sure to visit them online at PrestonPettyProducts.com. We have a beautiful Suzuki RM400. This bike was restored by Dino in Florida, and I've got a nice little video here that we've put together. I'm going to show it to you where I read about some of the finer points of this bike. 78 Suzuki RM400 wasn't a warmed over 370. It was a totally new bike. The 402cc air-cooled two-stroke single featured a 33mm Mikuni carburetor and produced nearly 43 horsepower. It featured a smooth, wide power band and great low-end torque as well. Enthusiasts raved about its small bike handling and how powerful the bike actually was. A big upgrade over the 370. The 78 RM400 had 10 inches of travel front and rear, utilizing leading axle telescopic forks and dual gas-charged remote reservoir shocks. The big RM400 was heralded as sort of stopping power as well, which was enhanced by its fully floating rear brake drum. It also featured a gorgeous aluminum box-type swing arm and a strong chromoly steel frame. This RM400 was restored by Dino Correo in Florida. It was completely gone through, including a Vintco rod kit, new bearings, seals. The cylinder was re-sleeved, and it was returned to the standard bore. The bike also features NOS fenders, side panels, front number plate, and rims. An absolutely impeccable example of an RM400 by Dino Correo. Thank you for allowing us to use that here on Vintage Motocross Q&A. If you send me your address, Dino, and I might even have it because I fixed some tanks for you, we'll get you something from Vintage Motocross Q&A. Dino Correo. Thank you once again. Moving on with the show. It's always a good time to mention this. For $49.95, you can become a Vintage Motocross Q&A supporter. You'll get a nice little package in return, including a t-shirt of your style and color and, of course, size choice. Or you could take a hat if you would like. You'll also get one of very few Racer X posters that I have left from Mike McCook. Okay. So we've got those, and yeah, you get your name up on the board for 90 days. I'm getting some kind of pop-up here from Facebook. I don't think it's all that important. And yeah, we'll get you together with some nice stuff, compliments of Vintage Motocross Q&A and our sponsors or supporters. Moving on to the next time, try this segment, which is brought to you by Motion Pro, quality tools, cables, and controls since 1984. Be sure to visit them online at motionpro.com. Now, looking at this picture, most of you will recognize it. It is, of course, someone changing the oil on their car. If your car or truck has an oil pan, and I'm sure it does, you're going to have a plug in there just like this. On that plug appears to be a washer, and it's just not a regular washer. It's a crush washer, and it's really something special and something very, very important toward sealing that oil pan or case on your motorcycle. Here on the left, you can see there's a used one. It looks pretty flat. There's still some oil on the plug itself. That's how we know it is used. On the right, we've got a fresh new crush washer, and you can see how it looks a little bit thicker than the washer on the left. Now, what does all that mean? Let's get down to this video I put together, and we'll tell you a little bit more about it. Here we go. Drain plug on your bike. Now, your cases look very, very similar to this. It's only half a case, of course, but on the bottom, right about here, is a drain plug that looks just like this. This is where you drain your oil out of when you're going to change the oil in your bike. Now, the bolt that is your oil drain plug is made of steel. Now, you can see it right there. I've got a magnet stuck to it. However, also part of that assembly is a washer, and it looks like this. This is not steel. This is aluminum, and as you can see, the magnet will not stick to it. It's aluminum, and it is called a crush washer. It's good for a limited amount of time after you change the oil on your bike, because each time you put it back together and you put it over that drain plug, it crushes against the case and causes a good, or creates a good seal. Now, the crush washers are only good for so many uses, and you may notice that you might have a leak under your bike. Check that. A lot of people don't realize that that washer does come off of your drain plug, and that flange on your drain plug isn't doing anything to help keep the oil in your bike. So take a look at that crush washer underneath there. You can get them from dealers across the country. You could certainly buy them even at times in a hardware store or anywhere on eBay or someplace like that. So look for a crush washer if you got a little bit of an oil leak on down on the bottom of your bike at the drain plug, and don't keep tightening it thinking that leak is going to go away. Replace that little aluminum crush washer, and that should solve the problem. So next time, try that. All right, we are back live at Vintage Motocross Q&A, and I hope that little crush washer video helps some people. You'd be surprised how many people don't realize it and continue either trying to tighten that oil drain plug and eventually strip it out, or they just don't realize that there is a remedy to that, and it's much easier to fix than they could ever imagine. In the Here's the Problem segment tonight, we will take a look at a few questions that were sent in to us. The Here's the Problem segment is brought to you by McCaffer Welding. Gordon McCaffer, Vintage Bike Stand. His number is right there on the screen, or you could certainly find him on Facebook. Question number 1 comes into us from Rocky Ketchum. Joe, I have this DG head with a slightly bent fin. Do you think I could straighten it here in my shop without any mishaps? I think you can. I have done it, and I'm going to tell you exactly how. Here's what you're going to need. You're going to need 3 wedges of wood like this, hardwood. I mean, if it's pine, that would work too. Now, you're going to cut those wedges so they fit snugly in between the cylinders above the cylinder that's bent, the fin that's bent. So you're going to shore up the two fins above it, okay? And then you're going to heat up this lower fin all the way around, okay? In fact, you could heat up the whole head. I have read where some people have put these in an oven to evenly heat everything. I don't necessarily find that a prerequisite to doing this job. You could do it with a propane torch. You can do it with MAP gas. But what you're going to do is you're going to shore up those 2 areas between those 2 fins before that. And then you're going to heat up that bent fin pretty well. And you're going to make it good and warm. Heat it evenly, go around the whole head. That wood is not going to catch fire. You're not going to have the wood directly or the flame directly on the wood. Now, after 5, maybe 8 minutes, you're going to take that wedge of wood, the third piece, and you're going to put it in there where the bent fin is, between the straight fin on top of it and the bent fin on the bottom. You're going to keep the heat on it, moving it around, keep the heat on that fin all the way around the head. And you are going to gently, look at me, gently tap that wedge into that cylinder, into that fin that's bent. And you're going to have to keep the heat on there, and you're going to have to use your judgment. Okay. You'll get the feel of it, and you'll see it start to straighten out. You want to keep it warm. That's important. Keep the flame away from the wood. That's important. Now, here's where you're in a little better shape than I am, and I did this on a cylinder head. That's why I've said cylinder a few times. I've done this on a cylinder head to a 1980 Honda CR125. Now, those heads are cast aluminum. Cast aluminum will break much easier than an extruded piece of aluminum, which is what this head is, extruded aluminum. What does that mean? It means a solid piece of billet was pushed through a fixture, and it came out the other end all in one piece. The cylinder, on the other hand, was molten aluminum that was poured into a mold. There are small microscopic air bubbles in there. It's much more brittle than an extruded head. So you can do it. It takes a little patience. It takes a little courage, but it can be done. Okay. And I've done it. If you want to call me, in fact, I fixed a few tanks for Rocky Ketchum. You have my number, Rocky. If you want to give me a call, and I'll walk you through it again, if you're just maybe not catching everything here on the show, but it can be done, and it's not really rocket science. It's just a matter of preparation. And probably one of the most important things, make sure that head is secure. Now, whether you put bolts through where it mounts onto your top end and you put it in your vise, that would probably be best. You don't want that thing moving around or on your workbench, you trying to heat it up and tap on it. You want to make sure you have that work secure before you get started. Propane gas will work just fine. MAP gas will work just fine. And the wood, well, make it as wide as that fin is bent. In other words, don't make it like a half an inch wide. Make it a little wider than where the bend is. And that goes for the two pieces you're going to be putting on top as well. Okay. Thanks for the question. That was a really good one. Let's move on. Got a question late this afternoon from Eric Weiss. It's late in the day here to ask you a question, but is there a holy grail dirt bike out there everybody wants, but nobody can find? Well, when you sent me that question, Eric, I started to think about that. And I mean, I don't know about holy grail, but 3 bikes that I would certainly want. Or I have recommended that some of my larger collector clientele should purchase for their collection is the 74 YZ360, only about 630 of those, a 75 Puch twin carb, only about 85 of those ever produced, and the Suzuki RH67. Only 120 of those were produced worldwide, with 60 coming into America. So is there a holy grail? I think the holy grail is the bike that we all want, whether it's a rare bike or not, and perhaps we can't find. So that's what I think the holy grail is for many of us. Now, I'm going to share a little story with you, and it was partially my, mea culpa, partly my fault when I let this happen. A few years ago, I had a beautiful 1974 CR250 for sale. The bike was impeccable. I had it for sale. A person called me from Southern California. I happened to be going down there that weekend. I showed him the pictures. He wanted to buy the bike. I did not ask for a deposit. I put the bike on the truck, and I happened to be going to LA that weekend anyway, but I still should have asked for a deposit. Anyway, I brought the bike to the gentleman. He gave me his address. He lived in a palace. When I tell you a palace, he had tennis courts, a huge pool, basketball courts. It was gated, absolutely phenomenal. I pulled in with my truck, and there's the bike that I sent him pictures of. He looked around it. He's shaking his head, and he's looking at it, and he can't make a decision. And I'm explaining to him that I just drove 6 hours to get there, but I was going out there anyway, and I put the bike on the truck. Well, I don't know. I'm thinking about it, and he was really starting to piss me off, is what he was actually starting to do. And I realized the sale was going south. So I asked him. I said to him, his name was Jim. He was a doctor. I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm a psychiatrist." I said, "You're a psychiatrist? It's quite a place you got here. You got swimming pools, tennis courts, basketball courts. I mean, this house looks like it must have 15 rooms in it." I said, "You know what your problem is, Jim? You don't want to buy a bike. You want to look for a bike, because once you find it, you're not going to have anything to do, and your little search is going to be over. It was nice meeting you." And I left. When somebody goes out to buy a bike like this, they know how much it costs. Whether it's 18, 20, 25,000, they know how much they're going to spend. So when you say a holy grail that they can't get, they can get it. Do they want to get it? And are they prepared with the money? There's things a lot of people wish for, but it's out of their financial realm. And then there are people who really, I think, they look, but they don't want to find it. The chase is much more important than the catch. Thank you for the question, Eric Weiss. We are going to take a commercial break. We're going to hear from Gordon McCaffer and McCaffer Welding, and we'll be right back with more Vintage Motocross Q&A.
I'm Gary Lolser.
I'm Dave Arnold. I'm Heikki Mikkola.
I'm Brock Glover, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll be right back.
What up?
McCaffer bike stands are available through Gordon McCaffer at 315-729-8415. Okay. Gordon McCaffer, big supporter of the show and a very, very good friend for quite a long time. Thanks, Gordon, for all you do for us here at the show, including the stands and the stands that I've enjoyed for over 20 years. Trivia is up next. Trivia is always brought to you by Mike McCook and Motorcyclist Illustrated. Okay. Get over to the Motorcyclist Illustrated page on Facebook. They are quite a diverse group when it comes to all types of motorcycles. Okay. Thank you, Mike McCook. And if you're there, you could tell me about the sound tonight, because I owe you a lot, not financially, but I do owe you quite a bit for helping me out getting the audio set up on this show. Now, this is a call-in contest only, so get your cell phone or whatever phone you use, get it ready for 925-784-2195. That's 925-784-2195. I'm not going to tell you what the prize is until after, hopefully, somebody wins it tonight, because the prize kind of has something to do with the question. And here it is. According to Dirt Bike Magazine, it was the fastest production motocross bike ever made. I would like you to name the brand, the year, and the size of the bike. And I'll give you bonus points, and I'll give you an additional poster, a completely different poster, if you could tell me the speed. All right. Dirt Bike Magazine said it was the fastest production motocross bike ever made. Name the brand, year, and size. Call in now, 925-784-2195. Susie is standing by, sort of. She's also getting me something to drink. Okay. So let's move on with Dave's Classic Corner. Dave's Classic Corner is brought to you by AMS. Be sure to visit them online at ams.com or follow Dave Boysden on his personal page on Facebook. Always something cool, kind of, going on with Dave Boysden. He's always at some kind of swap meet or bike show, or in some really unusual places. We had a video on last week where he was in a barn, had about 50 Husqvarnas and 3 501 Makos in it. But I digressed. Let's get on with the Dave video. Something a little bit different from Dave, too. Check this out.
Good afternoon, everybody. Another beautiful day out here in Phoenix. I think it's going to be about 90, and it's supposed to rain for 4 more days. We'll see. I'm showing you today Bonanza with the 5 horsepower. This is a 1200, I believe. So it has a jack shaft, chrome fenders, rear suspension. It's a Tecumseh motor of 5 horsepower. It has the larger diameter wheels and tires, and it is definitely painted the right color. Beautiful. Haven't made it run today. I put fuel line on it, throttle cable, rear brake cable. Made all the connections work. It's my first mini bike with a 2 horsepower, I think 2.5 horsepower motor, I think was in mine. Just found that little chain guard for it, which isn't correct for the bike, but it's correct for the period for sure. They had their own steel stamping that broke the brackets almost immediately and fell off. You were out there riding, you didn't have time. See, you didn't have a ball end lever yet, and no adjuster on the lever either. Stock general tires, front and rear, correct. Foot pegs aren't bent in any way. That's a good sign. They haven't ran it straight into something. But there's a Bonanza 1200. It would be according to around a 1967. Clean as a whistle. My allergies are back and everything's blooming. Yeah. Have a great day, everybody. Like and share, please. Thank you.
Dave Boyden with something really special for us again with a nice little mini bike. He usually comes in with some Bultacos and Makos. I've had him on with Yamahas, etc. But this time, Dave with the mini bike. I really appreciate that so very, very much. Hey, listen, if some of you have lost connection on Facebook, it's because of Facebook. It's not because of my end. I got to pop up on my screen too. And some people said they got it back. If you can see me and you're a little bit concerned with that, you could always go watch it on YouTube. Okay, so in the meantime, I appreciate you hanging in there with me. And it's not from my end. It is from Facebook, okay? I don't think we got any calls yet, so I'm going to read off the question one more time. Tonight's trivia is, according to Dirt Bike Magazine, it was the fastest production motocross bike ever made. I'd like you to name the brand, the year, and the size of the bike. And I'll give you an additional poster, a completely different one, if you can tell me the speed as well, okay? Area code 925-784-2195. Let's move on with the show. The next portion of it is the What's It Worth segment. What's It Worth segment is brought to you by Full Circle Racing. Be sure to visit them online at fullcircleracing.com. And this week's bike is a 1976 Honda CR250. All right, this is the portion of the show where I ask you, the viewers at home, to guess how much you think this bike recently sold for, and we will reward you with, you got some oil coming from AMSOIL. That's what Susie said at the beginning of the show, so she's in that department. I got to follow her lead on that. So let's get on with the video of what's happening here with the What's It Worth segment. You guess the price, and we'll get you a nice prize a little bit later on in the show. We'll tell you who that is. This 1976 Honda CR250 Elsinore was acquired by the seller in 2025. The subsequent work included refreshing the forks and installing Vinco air shocks, ASV levers, tubes, and Dunlop tires, an air filter, an aftermarket silencer, and an upswept exhaust system. The bike is finished in Tahitian red. It is powered by a 248cc two-stroke single engine with 5-speed transmission. Details include a kickstarter, key and carburetor, cross-braced handlebars, a black vinyl solo seat, and the side stand, wire spoke did rims, 18 and 21 inch, and front and side number plates. The CR250M Elsinore is now offered at no reserve with spare and removed parts, including a center lift stand, the owner's manual, and the California title in the owner's name. The bodywork of the frame is finished in Tahitian red. It's got black number plates. It has the yellow and black Honda wings and the Elsinore graphics as well. The wire spoke wheels, 21 and 18 inch, are mounted with Dunlop Geomax EN91 tires. They are brand new. Suspension consists of conventional forks as well as dual Vinco adjustable air shocks mounted to the swing arm. Spare parts included are the center lift, the owner's manual, and it's got a California title. So there you have it. And we would like to know what that bike is worth. And me looking at it, I'll tell you, I thought about it. And for the price, keep this in mind if you haven't typed in anything yet. Those shocks are about $750. I'm sure the guy went for another $300 on tires. So there's $1,000 right there. I don't know what ASV levers go for, but I think they're pretty pricey. So overall, I think the bike is in really nice condition. The rear tire looks a little big for a vintage 250, but all in all, a pretty nice bike. So how much do you think it recently sold for? $3,000? $3,500? You're thinking to yourself, well, between the tires and the shocks, it must have gone for at least $3,000. That bike sold for $2,350. $2,350. That was the final sale price. So whoever got closest without going over, I will let you know, and we'll tell you. We'll announce that a little bit later on in the show. We've got things here of $6,000. Somebody said $5,559, and yeah, it only went for a measly $2,300, and that's with the Vinco air shocks. And I think through the pictures, when I was running the pictures there through the video, I think it did show that the stock shocks, that giant stock silencer, comes with it as well. And the center stand, the title in the owner's name, a couple of things that are pretty unusual. And for $2,300, I think that was a really, really great deal. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to hear from Full Circle Racing, and we'll be right back with more Vintage Motocross Q&A.
I'm Doug Grant. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll be right back.
I get asked often, what's the most important thing on Clunker? Answer simple, it's me. That's why I use Full Circle Racing wheels prepped by Tom McAllister. So should you. Watch this and learn why. When racing vintage motocross where suspension is very limited, your wheels can be the difference between winning or serious injury. We chose to run Full Circle Racing wheels because of the super high quality materials and the heavy duty spokes used. Prepped by Tom McAllister, I have the confidence on the track to push way harder through the rough stuff and the bigger jumps, knowing my wheels are going to stay under me. Hey, Clunker may be 50 years old, but his wheels are brand new, and yours should be too. Call Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing today.
Thank you, Tom McAllister and Full Circle Racing, for your years of support. Now, you need some oil for your bike? In case your bike is leaking out of the bottom, like I told you about a little bit earlier, go to www.theoilpeople.shopamsoil.com. Got a very, very good special going on here right now. For a gallon of Dominator two-stroke oil, regularly $81, now just $59.75. Thank you, Russell Waters and Amsoil. Be a good idea to get some, test it out, maybe split a gallon with your friends, 2 or 3 of them, get the cost down, see if you guys like it. And it's just a great stuff. I mean, I know a lot of people that use it, okay? Moving on with the Did You Know segment. This is brought to you by Arma Motorcycle Racing. Visit them online at www.arma.org, with the content being provided by Jeff Kokoski, one of the biggest and most favorite segments of the show. Now, if you were watching last week, we were talking about a gentleman named Neil Fergus, and this is part 2 of the Neil Fergus story. So let's get on with it. Last week, we talked about desert racer Neil Fergus. He grew up in Southern California, and because of his legendary frame modification and engine tuning skills, he helped Yamaha develop the 1968 DT1 250 Enduro bike. The DT1 introduced hundreds of thousands of Americans to the freedom of motorcycling, trail riding, and off-road competition over the course of its production run. But Neil Fergus's impact on the motorcycle world does not end there. So, did you know the rest of the Neil Fergus story? The DT1 is now in full production. Yamaha asked Fergus to be a factory racer to continue to put the new bike through its paces in off-road events. Although he was still considered a top desert racer, Fergus was now 38 years old and semi-retired from racing and wanted to focus on his Bultaco and Hodaka business. He turned down the offer from Yamaha, but suggested Yamaha hire Mike Patrick to campaign on the new bike. You might recall from a story a few weeks ago that Patrick had worked with local Norton dealer Bob Blair and bike importer Joe Bernliner to help develop the Norton P11. Desert Scrambles machine. This was the off-road version of the Norton Ranger Street Scrambler that was part of Clint Eastwood's contract during the filming of Where Eagles Dare. Mike Patrick knew that two-strokes were the wave of the future, so he jumped ship from Norton to ride the lightweight DT1. In their first year of racing on the new bike in 1969, Patrick won the District 37 Desert Championship and repeated again in 1970. The DT1 two-stroke tsunami had started. Unfortunately, most of the British and Italian motorcycle brands failed to recognize the coming of the two-strokes. Ducati, in a somewhat bizarre twist of fate, knew Fergus's reputation for desert chassis refinement and his work with the DT1 development. So they hired him to develop a four-stroke scrambles bike that could also be ridden on the road. Basically, a four-stroke version of the DT1. Ducati flew Fergus to their headquarters in Bologna, where he worked with the engineers in modifying one of their street scramblers into something that would be competitive off-road. Fergus started by stripping the bike of unnecessary weight, then cutting and adjusting the frame to make it more suitable for off-road racing. The bike they developed was called the 450 RT for road and trail. It also used a 436cc single overhead cam with desmodronic valves, which they still utilize on some of their flagship bikes even to this day. Instead of relying on springs to close the valve, the desmodronic system uses a separate set of cams and rocker arms to mechanically force the valves open and closed. Now, although Fergus was satisfied by the way the bike handled on the Italian motocross and scrambles tracks, he was concerned that it would be unstable at higher desert speeds and that racers were accustomed to in the U.S. He wanted the frame modified even further. But just like Yamaha and the DT1 development, the Ducati's factory was in a hurry to get the bike to the market, so the frame was left alone and the bike was put into production as is. Once he got back home to Southern California, he got one of the new RT bikes out of the desert. Fergus confirmed his suspicion. The fork rake was far too steep for higher desert speeds. Fergus modified the frame by cutting the steering head off, shortening the upper frame tubes, and then re-welding the steering back on. The difference was so remarkable that when Bob Blair and Joe Berliner, the Ducati importers, received bikes in the U.S., they shipped the crated bikes directly to Fergus, who chopped the steering heads off, modified the frames, then recrated the bikes for delivery to the customer. However, even though the bike could be raced in the desert, it was not competitive. In the early 70s, the lightweight two-stroke was already making their mark on the off-road world, and Ducati ceased production of the 450 RT by 1974, selling only 460 machines. Also during that time, Neil Fergus continued his relationship with Yamaha. If you recall from last week's segment, Yamaha based the production of the DT250 on Fergus's prototype number 3. The modifications he made on his prototype number 4 made the bike much more race competitive. Yamaha didn't lose sight of this, and Fergus secured a position at the head of R&D for Mike Harper's Victor products, which soon making big bore kits, expansion chambers, skid plates, high-mounted fenders and fork braces, and a host of other accessories, beginning with the DT1 line. Calling them genuine Yamaha tuning kits, or GYT or GIT kits, Fergus helped pioneer the hop-up business. If you rode a Yamaha in the late 60s through the 70s and modified it for competition with the GIT parts, chances of those accessories were the brainchild of Neil Fergus. Now, by 1980, at the age of 51, Fergus left the motorcycle industry and became a welding and fabrication contractor, which he worked at until he was 88 years old. Although he had retired from the motorcycle business, he never retired from motorcycling. He continued riding one of the dual sport and rally bikes at almost every day, riding 20,000 to 30,000 miles a year. In an interview in 2023 for American Motorcyclists, he figured he had ridden around 2 million motorcycle miles. In 2015, Neil Fergus, he was inducted into the Trailblazers Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, he has yet to be part of the AMA Hall of Fame, but maybe someday he will, albeit posthumously. If ever there lived a man who embodied the spirit of the sport of motorcycling that we all love, it would be Neil Fergus. He was still riding right up until the week before he died last July at the age of 94. Think about the chronicle of events for a moment. It aligns with us, a lot of us, in our relationships with life on a motorcycle. You start off with pure joy, migrate to some form of competition, then either find work around them or perhaps put them aside while you toil in the fields. Then later on in life, your motorcycle becomes a way to be a friend again to you. Your favorite special or favorite social circle, the one you cherish. Nothing beats riding or bench racing with your buddies. I couldn't have said it better, Jeff Kokoski. And once again, you've put together something really, really fabulous, absolutely fascinating on Neil Fergus and his story. The AMA Hall of Fame induction is certainly something that should have been considered long ago, but hopefully we will see that over the next few years. I mean, certainly with all the contributions he made to motorcycling and the modifications, Neil Fergus certainly deserves to have his name in the AMA Hall of Fame. As far as ARMA goes, look for our ad in ARMA. We have an aluminum gas tank repair ad, and it's been bringing us a little bit of business. So if you are thinking about having a gas tank, aluminum tank restored by me, turnaround time right now is about 2 weeks. I can send you progress pictures daily, and prices start at just $295. That's $295. Okay, check out that ad. It looks really good. It's a half-page ad in ARMA's Vintage Views. And thank you, Ed Roman, for bringing me back into the fold there at ARMA. Okay, we are going to take a look at today in motocross history. This is brought to you by Racer X. Be sure to visit them online at racerx.com, or, well, you could just, I don't know, go down there and buy a magazine right off the rack. Wouldn't that be nice? Here's a very, very interesting story. It was 1974. At a series opening Inter-Am race in Salt Lake City, Utah, Manning Raceway, Yamaha's Pierre Karsmakers, a Dutchman living in the U.S. and racing here, gets the overall win. No surprise, but it was one of the most bizarre motocross races of all time that was held in a dry Dust Bowl condition. Evel Knievel was the co-promoter and the halftime entertainment. And, well, let's just say this, or let's explain it the way Cycle News did. The Inter-AMA got off to a fairly inauspicious start at the foothills of the mountains of Salt Lake. The setting was beautiful. The course was natural, technically demanding and long, but nothing seemed to come together. The promoters represented a combination of seemingly high-powered talent, but bogged down in the details on inexperience like dust control. The result was a sour note that day, which didn't seem all that necessary. The racing was delayed from a scheduled 1 p.m. to a 4:30 p.m. for watering, all amidst the talk of not racing at all and general confusion about what was coming off. The promoters set to work on the water trucks again, and as Evel Knievel played to the crowd until the water trucks were diverted to a brush fire that broke out above the track. What had happened was a skydiver with smoke flare attached to his leg had one of the flares come loose and it caught a brush, and the brush caught on fire. The brush and a lot of spectator cars were parked right where the fire had begun. Rioters stood on top of the trucks and trailers and watched cars explode as the fire swept through them, while the hot, dry afternoon wore slowly on. Exploding runaway cars, which firemen were breaking into, putting in neutral and pushing over a hill, were worth the $6 price admission alone. There was also a support class that day that acted as a 125 national. Team Honda's Marty Smith won over Husqvarna's rider Dan Turner and San Diego's Jeff Follman. Also on a Honda, here are the complete results. And if you want to see the complete results, well, you could go over to racerx.com, go to the vault. You could look at that and you'll see. But yeah, what a mix between Pierre and Marty. Evel Knievel being the promoter, the skydiver with a flare on his foot starting a fire, and cars exploding, and fire trucks and a dust bowl, and a lot of mayhem there in 1974 at the Manning track in Salt Lake City, right? Let's take a break. We're going to go over and hear from replicamotorcycleparts.com, and we will be back to wrap up Vintage Motocross Q&A.
Hi, I'm Sue Fish. You are watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paul Parkinson with Replica Motorcycle Parts. I'm sitting here with our test bike, which is ridden by Jerry Maddox. Carries the #1 plate in the US. Let's go over a couple of the parts that we've got on here. We've got our ignition cover with the case saver built into it, so that when the chain comes off, you're not damaging your cases. Spacer, foot pegs. Jerry runs our air box. Seat brackets, keeps the seat on tight so he doesn't fall off when he's going over the whoops. And then this side, Jerry runs a couple little things, a lot of little rubber parts on the bike and stuff are all done by us. And And then down here we've got our brake pedal, which has got needle bearings in there, and then it's got a wider toe peg, so it gives them a real nice, clean, easy to use brake. And then this is our latest part. This is a CR250 type knuckle. In fact, Honda used them on the last versions of the MR175, and this is a real trick aluminum Kickstarter arm. So that gives them lightweight, strength, and reliability more than anything else.
All right. Yeah, Susie is around, and she did tell me about Facebook having its problems, but there's not much I can do about that. So hopefully your connection is still good, or you are watching on YouTube. Jason Brooks, you are tonight's viewer appreciation winner, and you will be receiving a Marty Smith sticker sheet. Okay. And we don't have a winner in trivia yet. I'm going to read it again. Maybe by the end of the show, somebody will come out and we'll have the answer. According to Dirt Bike Magazine, it was the fastest production motocross bike ever made. Name the brand, year, and size. Some bonus points. You get an additional poster if you can tell me actually how fast that bike went. Okay? Should I give you a hint? No, I'm not going to do it. Because this has been around for like 40 years. And I think it's still the fastest bike ever tested by Dirt Bike. So think about that for a minute. They're a very popular brand today. They weren't the most popular brand back when they set that record. Maybe they were a few years before that. They have a world championship under their belt back then. Okay. And they've had a couple of more since. You think about that for a couple of minutes, and we are going to get on with the rest of Vintage Motocross Q&A. It is time for the announcements. The announcements are brought to you by the International Motocross Museum. Be sure to visit their Facebook page, International Motocross Museum. Okay. Jeff Conboy still has a couple of books left. They're $79. Classic Bultaco. A lot of color pages in this book. It's almost 200 pages long. And it's got a couple of Jim Pomeroy autograph copies left as well for just a few bucks more. Get a hold of Jeff on Facebook. All right. Some events coming up. We've got the Moto Barn. George Ackerman has an event coming up, Steve Wise Memorial. So far, we got Warren Reed, Barry Higgins, Martina Faltova Cope, and he did mention there's a couple of other suspects that will confirm in the very, very near future. This is a free event. It is on County Line Church Road in Rutherford Glen, Virginia. It happens on October 24th from 10 to 4 p.m. George puts on a great event. There's a bike show. There's the mini bike Moto Barn as well. A lot of cool stuff happening there. And don't forget, you want to be a Vintage Motocross Q&A supporter? You can get that or do that by buying a t-shirt, tank top, a hoodie, a sweatshirt. They come in all colors, all sizes. Prices begin at just $24.95. Hats only come in black, $22. Shipping included. Take PayPal, take Venmo, we take Zelle. Now, I hear Susie in the other room. She might have somebody on the phone, but I'm going to keep... I think we do. Here she comes. We've got someone here. It's Joe Abbate. You're live on Vintage Motocross Q&A. Who am I speaking to? Brian Webley, hang on. I need to have you on speaker, brother, so we could hear you. Once again, you're live on Vintage Motocross Q&A. Who am I speaking to?
Hey, this is Brian Webley.
Hey, Brian Webley. The question was, Dirt Bike said it was the fastest bike in the history of motocross bikes. I would like you to name the bike, the year, and if you could tell me how fast it went, well, that would be a plus for you. So what do you got?
It's a 1981 KTM 495.
That is exactly right. A 1981 KTM 495. And according to tests highlighted by Dirt Bike Magazine, the 81 KTM 495 considered the fastest production motocross bike, reaching 123 miles an hour on a dry lake bed. The 493cc two-stroke machine achieved this speed using specific gearing modifications, such as a 15-tooth countershaft sprocket. You could read more about that at the Dirt Bike Historic website. Now, that's why I couldn't show everybody what you've won, Brian, but here it is, and I don't know if you're watching, but it is that KTM ripping across a dry lake bed at 123 miles an hour. And I'm going to bring up something on the screen right now, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about what some of the other records were. Now, Brian, while I have you on the phone, did Susie get your address?
No, she didn't, but I can text it to you later.
You text it to me a little bit later. I want to thank you for calling in, and you've won yourself a real nice poster. And because well, you'll see. You'll get it too, but the poster in it, and we'll see what else I have laying around here, okay?
All right, buddy. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching the show, and thanks for calling in.
All right, Joe. Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, Brian Webley. Now, as I was talking to him, I did tell you a little bit about, or we started to talk about some other speeds and records. Now, I found this. Now, I only believe half the stuff I read. I mean, none of the things I read, really, and then only half the things I see. Now, right here, if you look at number one, they've got an ATK 700 Intimidator, but they only got it going 110 to 120 miles an hour. The KTM in 81 reached 123 miles an hour, according to what I've read, not 126, still above the ATK. Now, you've got some other bikes in here, and I really thought that at this point, some of those bigger four-strokes would have really set that record back. I mean, but there seemed to be like 95 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour. Husqvarna TE510 at 95 miles an hour. Anyway, it does appear that the reigning champion for the fastest dirt bike or motocross bike ever built is the KTM. Okay, so we do have a winner, and I did mention that Jason Brooks was also the viewer appreciation winner, and we were right in the middle of doing something here. We were talking about, we talked about Jeff Conboy's book. We talked about George Ackerman's event. Don't forget, all the events are posted for your Potomac Vintage Riders, your ARMA events, your American Classic Racing events up there in the Northeast. And of course, later in September, Zor Motocross Park, 3-day event, reunion ride, Vintage MX Racing, and it's 3 days, and there's camping too. We talked about the shirts, and you ever heard of segment is brought to you by Sunrise Vapor Blasting. They are in Modesto. They do a great job. Have helped us many, many times over. Thank you, Mark Farriester. So if you're thinking about having something vapor blasted and you're going to mail it to someone, mail it to Mark Farriester. Sunrise Vapor Blasting. Turnaround time is very, very fast, usually a day, and his prices are exceptionally reasonable. Now, you ever heard of Yamaha? Of course you've heard of Yamaha. But did you know that there was a bike that Yamaha built and actually produced a very limited number of in the 2000s? Well, let's go through this little slideshow I put together, and we'll take a look at that while I read to you what happened. Yamaha WR450F 2-track is an exceptionally rare enduro motorcycle produced in mid-2000s, featuring a groundbreaking hydraulic two-wheel drive system developed by Oleans, designed to improve traction in soft sand, mud, and uneven terrain. Only about 250 units were ever built. Instead of heavy chains and a mechanical drive shaft, the two-stroke system implemented a pump. The pump, it's a chain drive hydraulic pump. It's mounted at the top of the gearbox. The motor is a high-pressure hose connected to the pump to a small single hydraulic motor located inside the front hub. The system is completely self-regulating. When the rear wheel begins to spin and lose traction, hydraulic pressure increases, transferring it 15% of the engine's power to the front wheel. It gave enhanced stability. It prevents the front wheel from washing out in loose dirt. It helps the bike pull out of corners. And one of the big things that a lot of people actually mentioned were that if you got bogged down in the sand out in the desert, the front wheel would kick in and the back wheel would stop driving. The front wheel would pull you out of the sand. But it really shined there. But the bike was just too heavy. It was quite complicated, and only 250 units were built. So they are out there somewhere. And we were talking a little bit earlier about holy grails, and who knows, maybe some younger riders from in those way back in the 2000s, in the early 2000s, 22, 24 years ago, they might be looking for this WR450 2-track. Who knows? So there you have it. You ever heard of that? Yamaha having a two-wheel drive bike? I never did. Okay. I wanted to mention earlier, after the ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com commercial, that they do make the replica silencer for the 1973, 1974 Honda CR250 and 125, 595 bucks. Don't go out there and buy a dented one and have it fixed. Buy once, cry once. Replica motorcycle parts, $5.95. Don't forget, support the show if you can. If you want to become a sponsor, we can do that for you for $249.95 a month. If you just want to be a supporter, it is a one-time fee. For $49.95, you get your name up on the board for 90 days. You get a shirt, you get a poster. Now, in the beginning of the show, we had Al Roof on, and I prompted Al, who's a really great guy and a longtime supporter of the show, to make me a little outro, as we say, or sometimes it's an intro. It happens at the beginning of the show. And Al did this.
Hi, I'm Al Roof, the other lumberjack, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A.
All right, Al, enough. Now, if you would like to make something like that, just like that, set up your camera on a tripod, come in there on your motorcycle, take off your Jofa or your helmet so we can see your face, make a little 5 to 7 second video like that, and I'll put it on the show. All right? Thank you, Al Roof, for being such a good sport. And thanks to everybody out there who watched the show tonight. My apologies for Facebook, but feels good to say it wasn't my fault. That's for sure. Okay, I'm going to check one more time also on the price of the bike in the What's It Worth segment. I didn't see a lot of answers on that. Okay, so I'm looking at it now and I'm not seeing many. But last week, what I had to do, because we had a couple of people type in late, I went on Facebook the next day and on the Vintage Motocross Q&A page, and I typed in who won. And I'll do the same thing tomorrow if we do have anybody. This would be one of the first times that somebody didn't guess what the price was on that bike. But we did have a trivia winner, Brian Webley, thank you. And yeah, we had a viewer appreciation winner as well. I mentioned that a little while ago. So that's it for Vintage Motocross Q&A. We will see you next time. Don't forget, keep sharing the show, subscribe to our YouTube page, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching tonight. Okay?